If you're over 65 and trying to stay active, I want you to stop for a moment and really listen to this because what I'm about to tell you might surprise you. Walking is great. It's simple, it's accessible, it's something almost everyone can do. But what if I told you that there are 3 exercises approved by surgeons, backed by research, and recommended by top mobility experts that actually beat walking when it comes to keeping your body strong, stable, and aging gracefully? And no, these exercises aren't complicated. They don't require joining a gym, and you don't need any fancy equipment. In fact, once you learn them, you'll realize they're the missing piece you've needed all along, especially if you want to stay independent, stay mobile, and keep your joints feeling good for years ahead. So stay with me, because if you're over 65, these 3 movements could genuinely change your life.
Walking has always been seen as the go-to activity for older adults. And in many ways, it deserves that reputation because it's simple, gentle, and something most people can do without equipment or training. But when you really look closely at what happens to the body after age 65, you start to see a different picture, one that reveals walking alone just isn't enough to protect long-term mobility, strength, or confidence. The body changes in ways that walking doesn't fully address. Muscles shrink faster, especially the ones that help with balance and stability. Bones lose density because they're not getting the kind of load or resistance they need to stay strong. Reflexes slow down, joints become stiffer, and posture starts to shift forward, putting stress on the lower back and knees. These are the exact areas that need targeted attention, not just repetitive steps forward. And this is why surgeons and movement experts consistently point out that while walking is good, it is not the complete solution for healthy aging. As people get older, the biggest risks they face aren't usually related to heart health alone, but rather to falls, fractures, joint degeneration, and the loss of strength that makes everyday tasks harder. Something as simple as stepping off a curb, getting up from a chair, or turning quickly can become a challenge when the muscles used for stabilization weaken. Walking doesn't strengthen those stabilizing muscles because the movement is too linear, too predictable, and too repetitive. It doesn't challenge the side-to-side muscles around the hips. It doesn't build the quadriceps enough to protect the knees. It doesn't strengthen the glute muscles that prevent the pelvis from tilting. It doesn't improve ankle mobility or reaction time. That's why someone can walk an hour every day and still feel shaky climbing stairs, still lose balance when turning, or still struggle with knee pain. Walking keeps you moving, but it doesn't keep you strong. And that's where the real issue lies. People often think they're doing enough simply by walking daily, but walking rarely trains the muscles that actually keep you steady and upright when something unexpected happens. If you catch your toe on the edge of a rug, walking does not prepare your body to recover quickly. If you slipped on a wet tile, walking doesn't build the strength to hold yourself up. If your knee buckles because the muscles around it are weak, walking won't improve the situation. Falls become more common not because people aren't walking, but because the specific muscles that prevent falls are weak. Surgeons see this firsthand every day. They treat fractured hips, broken wrists, damaged knees, and all kinds of injuries that come from a single moment of instability. And almost every time they ask the patient what their activity level was before the fall, the answer is nearly always the same. I walked every day. And that's the problem. People assume walking checks all the boxes for aging well, when in reality, walking mostly helps heart health and circulation, but it doesn't fix the biggest issues that lead to injuries. Another important thing to understand is that muscle loss after 65 accelerates rapidly, especially without targeted resistance. This natural decline is called sarcopenia, and it affects balance, strength, posture, and even metabolism. Walking doesn't stop sarcopenia. It doesn't build new muscle fibers. It doesn't challenge the body enough to create the kind of growth stimulus older muscles need. You might burn a few calories and keep your joints moving, but the deeper structural support system of the body continues to weaken quietly in the background. That's why older adults who rely on walking alone often become thinner but weaker, lighter but less stable, active but not necessarily strong. It's a surprising and frustrating contradiction, but one that makes perfect sense once you understand how the body responds to aging. When surgeons talk about exercises that are better than walking, they aren't undermining walking. They're highlighting the fact that walking should only be one part of the plan, not the whole plan. Walking is the warm-up, the bonus, the add-on. But the foundation of staying mobile past 65 is strength and stability. That's where the 3 exercises mentioned in the script come in. They directly target the weaknesses that walking ignores, especially around the hips, knees, core, and lower back. These muscles are the armor of the body. They keep you stable when someone bumps into you. They help you get off the floor if you kneel down. They help you maintain balance when the ground is uneven. They help you stay upright even when reflexes slow down. Walking doesn't train these defense systems. It only moves you forward. Think about the difference between someone who walks every day but struggles to stand from a low seat versus someone who practices targeted strength exercises a few times a week. The first person might technically be active, but their functional strength is low. The second person might walk less, but their muscles support them better in real-life situations. That difference becomes extremely noticeable as people age. Everyday life does not require being able to walk long distances. It requires being able to lift your own body, shift your weight safely, turn without losing balance, support your joints, and stay steady during sudden changes in movement. Those are the skills that keep someone living independently, and those skills require more than walking. That's why surgeons emphasize exercises that build protective strength. It's not about making older adults into athletes. It's about making them resilient. It's about making sure they can trust their legs, feel stable on their feet, and avoid the types of injuries that lead to long hospital stays or long-term mobility decline. Walking is good for the heart, but strength is good for survival. The body after 65 needs more targeted training because it no longer maintains muscle automatically. Without these extra exercises, the risk of joint pain, falls, and weakness increases even if you walk daily. And when the goal is aging well, preventing falls, and keeping your independence, relying only on walking simply isn't enough, because walking doesn't build the strength required to protect your joints, bones, and balance systems the way these specific exercises do.
Surgeons spend their careers repairing joints, stabilizing fractures, and helping people recover from injuries that often could have been prevented with stronger muscles and better stability. That's why, when they talk about exercises that matter most after age 65, they consistently point people toward targeted strengthening instead of relying solely on walking. They see the consequences of weak muscles more than anyone else. They see how quickly independence can slip away after a single fall. They see how fragile the hips, knees, and spine can become when the body isn't getting the kind of resistance it needs to stay solid. Walking is popular because it feels safe and familiar, but from a surgeon's point of view, it often gives people a false sense of security. You can walk every day and still have dangerously weak stabilizing muscles. You can walk every day and still be one slip away from a serious injury. That's why surgeon-approved exercises focus on strength first. They protect your structure, not just your stamina. When surgeons evaluate an older patient, they don't ask how far the person can walk. They ask how easily the person can get up from a chair. They ask whether they can balance on one leg. They ask if they can climb a few stairs without holding the railing. These are not random questions. They reveal whether the key muscle groups, the glutes, quadriceps, hamstrings, core, and hip stabilizers are strong enough to support the body in everyday life. Walking doesn't train these muscles at the intensity they need. It doesn't challenge them through a full range of motion. It doesn't force them to coordinate in a way that builds balance. That's why surgeons push for exercises that specifically strengthen these areas, because strong legs and hips mean fewer surgeries, fewer injuries, and far better mobility with age. Think about what happens during a fall. It's not endurance that saves you. It's not your ability to walk long distances. It's the strength to catch yourself, to stabilize quickly, to correct your balance. Surgeons often explain that falls in older adults typically happen in a split second, and in that moment, the body needs muscle power. Not slow, gentle, walking type movement, actual strength and reactive stability. But when the muscles are weak from years of underuse, the body can't react fast enough, and that's when the hip fractures, wrist fractures, and spinal injuries happen. These are not small injuries. They change lives. They take away independence. And surgeons know the best defense against these injuries is not more walking, but building strength in the muscles that protect the joints and bones. Walking operates in one direction, forward. But your daily life isn't that simple. You step sideways, you twist, you bend, you pick things up, you reach, you turn quickly when someone calls your name. These movements require strength in muscles that walking hardly activates. That's why surgeons recommend exercises that challenge the hips in multiple directions, strengthen the glutes to stabilize the pelvis, and build the quadriceps to protect the knees. When these muscles are strong, the body becomes far more resistant to injury. Your steps become more secure, your joints feel more supported. Your balance automatically improves because your legs can control your weight more effectively. This kind of protection is something walking simply cannot give, no matter how much of it you do. There's also the issue of bone density. Surgeons constantly warn that weak bones increase the severity of injuries, especially hip fractures. Walking does help bone health slightly, but it does not provide enough load to significantly strengthen bones past a certain age. Targeted exercises, on the other hand, apply resistance that stimulates the bones to stay dense. When muscles pull on the bones respond by maintaining their thickness. This is crucial after age 65 because bone loss accelerates during these years. Stronger bones mean fewer fractures, and fewer fractures mean a drastically lower risk of disability. That's why surgeon-approved exercise routines always involve some level of strengthening because it protects both the muscles and the bones simultaneously. Surgeons also point out that people over 65 often have underlying issues like arthritis, balance disorders, joint stiffness, or a history of injuries. Walking can sometimes worsen these problems because it repeats the same movement thousands of times without strengthening the supporting structures. When the knees are weak, walking can irritate them. When the hips lack stability, walking becomes shaky. When posture is weak, walking can create back pain. But targeted exercises can correct these weaknesses. They can strengthen the muscles around painful joints, reducing discomfort. They can improve posture by strengthening the spine and core. They can increase stability so that walking itself feels safer and easier afterward. This is why surgeons emphasize strengthening first, because a stronger body handles movement better in every way. Another thing surgeons frequently mention is that walking doesn't prepare the body for real-life moments that require effort, like lifting groceries, carrying laundry, climbing stairs, pushing yourself up from the floor, or getting out of a low seat. These activities require power, not just endurance. They require muscles that can contract with force. Walking is too gentle to build that kind of capability. The surgeon-approved exercises, however, are designed to build functional strength, the kind of strength that keeps you living independently for as long as possible. Being able to get out of a chair without using your hands is a far better measure of health than walking a mile does. Being able to balance on one leg for a few seconds tells surgeons more about your fall risk than your step count does. These are the abilities that matter most, and they come from strength, not walking. Surgeons repeatedly stress the importance of hip strength specifically because weak hips are one of the leading causes of falls in older adults. When the muscles on the sides of the hips, especially the gluteus medius, are weak, the pelvis tilts and the legs become unstable. This leads to wobbling, knee pain, poor balance, and difficulty walking safely. Walking does not effectively activate these muscles, but the targeted exercises recommended by surgeons do. Once these muscles strengthen, balance improves almost automatically. Knee pressure reduces, and movement becomes smoother. This is why surgeon-approved routines often begin with hip and glute strengthening because they create a stable foundation for the entire body. What surgeons want people over 65 to understand is that the body needs resistance to stay strong. Without resistance, the muscles shrink, the bones weaken, and the joints become vulnerable. Walking does not provide the kind of resistance necessary to prevent these declines. The exercises they recommend are not intense, not risky, and not complicated.
They are simple but powerful movements that directly counteract the physical changes that happen with age. And when these exercises become part of a weekly routine, people move better, feel more stable, and dramatically reduce their risk of injury even if they continue walking as their main form of cardio. That's why surgeon-approved exercises are considered far more effective than walking alone, because they protect the areas of the body that matter most for long-term mobility, safety, and independence.
As people move past the age of 65, a few muscle groups start to weaken faster than others. And these areas are directly responsible for balance, stability, and the ability to move confidently without fear. The hips, knees, and core are the pillars of safe movement. Yet these are also the exact places where most age-related weakness develops. When these muscles grow weaker, the entire body starts compensating in ways that increase joint stress and reduce stability. This is why someone may feel their knees wobble when they stand up, or their hips shift when they walk, or their back tighten after a short activity. It's not just stiffness or aging, it's targeted muscle weakness showing up in subtle but important ways. The truth is that the major muscles supporting the lower body and midsection decline rapidly after 65 unless they are intentionally trained. Walking doesn't train them. Light movement doesn't train them. Only specific, focused exercises can wake these muscles back up and rebuild the strength that protects your joints and prevents falls. When you think about daily life, almost everything you do relies on the strength of your hips, knees, and core. Getting out of a chair, standing from a low surface, climbing stairs, stepping sideways, bending down, reaching forward, shifting your balance, turning around quickly, lifting something off a shelf, or even catching yourself if you suddenly lose footing. All of these movements demand coordinated strength. The core keeps you upright. The hips stabilize your pelvis, the knees absorb pressure and help you transition from sitting to standing. When these areas weaken, your body starts to rely on momentum instead of strength, which becomes risky. That's when people start pushing off chairs with their hands, struggling to get up from the floor, and feeling unsteady walking on uneven surfaces. These warning signs show that the stabilizer muscles haven't been used enough, and once these muscles begin shutting down, they don't wake back up on their own. They need targeted exercises. One of the most important areas surgeons and therapists focus on is the hip complex. Weak hips, especially weak glute muscles, are one of the biggest causes of balance loss. The gluteus medius, located on the side of the hip, is particularly critical. It controls side-to-side movement, stabilizes the pelvis when you walk, and keeps your legs aligned properly. If this muscle weakens, the knees start collapsing inward, the pelvis tilts, and the lower back picks up pressure it shouldn't have. This is why older adults begin to sway, wobble, or shuffle when they walk. They're not just moving carefully, they're moving around weakness. Strengthening the hips directly fixes this problem by restoring stability and control. That's something walking can never do, because walking doesn't activate the glutes deeply enough to create actual strength gains. The knees are another major point of concern. Many older adults believe knee pain is simply a sign of aging, but more often, knee discomfort comes from weak quadriceps and tight or underused hamstrings. The knee joint itself doesn't have muscles. It relies entirely on the muscles around it for protection. When the quadriceps weaken, the knee becomes unstable, and small tasks like stepping down a curb or standing up from a seat start feeling difficult. People begin avoiding stairs or uneven ground because they don't trust their legs. That lack of confidence grows quickly and leads to even more weakness because avoiding movement makes the muscles shrink even faster. But when you strengthen the major muscle groups that support the knee, pain often decreases and stability improves dramatically. Surgeons see this all the time. Simple strengthening exercises reduce knee pressure and help people move better without medication or surgery. Then there's the core, which is far more important than most people realize. The core isn't just the stomach muscles, it's the entire network of muscles around the spine, hips, and pelvis. This system keeps you upright, prevents the back from rounding forward, supports your posture, and helps you balance. A strong core makes every movement easier. A weak core makes every movement harder.
When the core weakens, posture collapses, the body tilts forward, breathing becomes shallow, and walking becomes less stable. A weak core also makes the back work overtime, leading to lower back pain, stiffness, and difficulty twisting or bending. Strengthening the core is essential for maintaining independence because it allows you to turn, stand, maintain balance, and move with more control. Without core strength, the hips and knees can't function properly because all three areas are interconnected. The frustrating thing is that walking doesn't solve any of these issues. Walking moves the body forward, but it doesn't strengthen the hips in a side-to-side direction. It doesn't challenge the knees under controlled resistance, and it doesn't force the core to stabilize in a meaningful way. That's why so many older adults who walk every day still feel wobbly, weak, or unsteady. They're active, but they're not strong. They're moving, but they're not training the muscles that matter most. That's why these 3 specific exercises from the script are so important. They target the exact muscle groups that walking leaves untouched. They activate the glutes, strengthen the quadriceps, engage the core, and support the pelvis. They build functional strength, the kind of strength that shows up in real life, not just during exercise. Once these muscles start waking up again, everything begins to change. People notice they can stand up more easily. They feel more stable stepping off a curb or navigating uneven flooring. They can climb stairs without stiffness. Their balance improves without them even thinking about it. The legs feel more secure. The core feels more supportive. Movements feel smoother and more controlled because the body finally has the strength it needs to function well. These aren't small improvements, they're life-changing ones. Mobility becomes easier, pain becomes less frequent, confidence increases, and most importantly, the risk of falling drops significantly because strong muscles react quickly and hold the body steady when something unexpected happens. When you strengthen the hips, knees, and core, you're not just improving fitness, you're rebuilding the foundation of safe movement. You're creating a stable frame that protects your joints and supports your spine. You're restoring balance, control, and resilience. These improvements are what allow people over 65 to live independently, move confidently, and maintain a high quality of life. Walking may keep you moving, but it's targeted exercises that keep you strong. And strength, not distance, not step count, not daily walks, is what prevents the injuries, falls, and mobility issues that so many older adults face. Strength is what keeps you steady. Strength is what keeps you safe. Strength is what lets you keep doing the things you love without fear.
The exercises recommended for people over 65 are not complicated, and that's exactly why they work so well. The problem isn't that older adults need intense workouts or heavy weights. The real issue is that the most important muscles for balance, strength, and stability slowly turn off because daily life no longer challenges them. These simple targeted movements are designed to wake those muscles back up. They activate the body in ways walking never can because they force the muscles to engage, stabilize, and support weight instead of just repeating a forward motion. When someone performs these exercises, they immediately feel areas working that might not have been used in years. The glutes turn on, the thighs activate, the hips stabilize, the core engages. It feels different because it is different. And that difference is exactly what leads to better balance, better posture, stronger joints, and a more secure sense of movement. What makes these exercises so effective is that they are accessible. There's no intimidation, no equipment, no complicated setup. Anyone can do them at home. That's important because consistency matters far more than intensity when it comes to building strength after 65. If something is too hard, too confusing, or too time-consuming, people won't stick with it. But when the movement is simple and the benefits are immediate, the chances of repeating it go way up. Older adults don't need fancy routines. They need exercises that directly strengthen the muscles that matter for daily tasks. These 3 movements fit perfectly into that category, activating the hips, knees, and core in a safe but powerful way that produces real functional improvements. A big reason walking doesn't activate these muscle groups is because it's predictable.
The body gets so used to the repetitive pattern that certain muscles become lazy. For example, the glutes barely fire during walking, even though they are essential for stability. The side hip muscles don't get challenged because there's no sideways motion. The quadriceps don't get enough pressure because walking doesn't require forceful extension. And the core isn't forced to stabilize because the upper body simply flows along with the movement. But with targeted exercises, the muscles don't get to hide. They can't rely on momentum, they can't rely on habit, they must contract, stabilize, and take responsibility for movement again. That's why people who start these exercises often feel the burn quickly. They're using muscles that haven't been properly engaged in a long time. The beauty of these exercises is that they're designed to strengthen in practical ways. They're not about looking toned or building bulk, they're about making everyday activities easier and safer. When the hips are strong, walking becomes smoother and the pelvis stays stable. When the knees are supported by strong quadriceps, standing up requires less effort and descending stairs becomes less frightening. When the core is engaged, posture improves and the back relaxes because it no longer has to do all the work. Every part of life becomes easier when the muscles that support the skeleton are strong. Even simple things like carrying groceries, sweeping the floor, reaching for something overhead, or playing with grandchildren start feeling more manageable because the body has actual strength to rely on instead of just endurance. Another powerful benefit of these simple exercises is improved joint health. Many older adults deal with stiffness, arthritis, or general discomfort in the hips and knees. Surprisingly, the lack of muscle strength makes these problems worse. When the surrounding muscles are weak, the joints experience more pressure with every step. Strengthening the muscles alleviates that pressure, giving the joints room to move more freely and comfortably. People often assume that exercising will make joint pain worse, but targeted strengthening actually reduces pain by taking the load off the areas that hurt. The joints don't need rest as much as they need support, and that support only comes from stronger muscles. That's why surgeons constantly recommend strengthening exercises before considering surgery, because a large percentage of joint problems improve when the muscles around them are trained properly. These exercises also improve coordination, something that tends to decline quietly with age. Coordination is not just about moving smoothly, it's about the body's ability to react quickly and efficiently when something unexpected happens. When the muscles are trained through focused movements, they learn to work together again. They respond more quickly, they stabilize faster. Coordination improves, and with it comes a massive reduction in fall risk. A body that is strong and coordinated can handle sudden changes in direction, small slips, and uneven surfaces without collapsing. That kind of stability cannot be built through walking alone. It requires exercises that demand control, focus, and proper engagement. Another important aspect is confidence. Many older adults begin to move cautiously because they don't trust their bodies anymore. They don't feel steady when they stand up, they fear falling on stairs, they worry about slipping in the kitchen or on tile floors. This kind of fear gradually limits movement, and limited movement leads to even more weakness. It becomes a cycle that slowly reduces independence. But when someone starts doing targeted exercises and feels their muscles getting stronger, confidence comes back. They begin moving with more assurance. They stop hesitating when standing up or stepping sideways. Confidence is one of the most powerful outcomes of strengthening these specific areas, and it changes the way people approach daily life. What's remarkable is how quickly improvements show up. With exercises that directly activate the hips, knees, and core, people often begin noticing changes within a week or two. Standing becomes easier, balance feels more natural, pain reduces, energy increases because movement requires less effort. These small victories build momentum, making it even easier to stay consistent. And because the exercises are simple, there's no mental barrier to doing them regularly. The routine becomes part of everyday life, like brushing your teeth, because the body quickly recognizes the benefits. The core idea is that simplicity does not mean weakness. Simple movements can be incredibly powerful when they are designed to target muscles that matter. The reason these exercises outperform walking is because they are intentional. They go directly to the source of age-related weakness instead of skimming the surface. They retrain the muscles that keep people independent.
They rebuild the strength that prevents falls. They restore the stability that walking alone cannot provide. These exercises may look easy, but they carry a profound impact on the body, contributing to better longevity, better mobility, and a much safer life.
When someone over 65 begins to incorporate these targeted exercises into their weekly routine, the changes that follow often feel bigger than expected because they don't just improve strength, they transform the way the whole body functions. Each repetition sends a signal to the muscles that they are still needed, still useful, still capable of supporting movement. And that signal becomes stronger every time the exercise is repeated. The body responds quickly when it is given the right kind of stimulus. Muscles begin to firm up, joints start feeling more supported, posture improves naturally, and movements that once felt shaky begin to feel stable again. What makes this so powerful is that these exercises focus on the very weaknesses that cause most age-related mobility problems. It isn't about adding more walking or trying to stay active for the sake of activity. It's about strengthening the specific areas that protect your independence. When the hips, legs, and core get stronger, balance improves almost automatically. Most older adults don't lose balance because they forget how to walk. They lose balance because the stabilizer muscles grow too weak to control their weight shifting. Once those stabilizers fire up and regain strength, the body becomes more coordinated, the feet land more confidently, and the risk of slipping or tripping drops dramatically. A strong lower body responds faster when something unexpected happens, like stepping on a loose rug or catching your foot on a doorframe. That instant reaction is what prevents a fall. And that reaction is only possible when the muscles have been trained with deliberate strengthening movements. One of the most noticeable improvements people experience after doing these exercises for a few weeks is the change in joint comfort. When muscles grow stronger, they take on more of the load that the joints used to carry alone. The knees don't grind as much because the quadriceps are supporting them. The hips don't ache as often because the glutes and stabilizers are finally doing their job. Even the lower back starts to feel relief as the core muscles tighten and reduce unnecessary pressure on the spine. Many people are surprised to realize that their discomfort wasn't caused by age so much as it was caused by weakness. When that weakness is corrected, the body moves with less strain and more ease. Pain doesn't control the day anymore. The ability to move freely without worrying about soreness or sharp discomfort becomes one of the greatest rewards of strengthening these critical areas. Energy is another benefit that people don't expect. Walking can improve endurance, but it doesn't change the way the body uses energy. Strength training does. It wakes up larger muscle groups, improves circulation, and boosts the body's efficiency. Simple daily tasks begin to require far less effort because the body is no longer struggling to compensate for weak muscles. Standing up takes less breath, carrying groceries takes less strain, climbing stairs becomes less exhausting. The strength from these exercises spreads into every corner of life, making movement feel lighter and smoother. This kind of strength-driven energy boost is something walking alone cannot deliver. Confidence also plays a huge role in quality of life, especially after 65. When people feel themselves getting stronger, they move differently. They stand taller, walk steadier, and approach physical tasks with less hesitation. Confidence reduces fear, and fear is one of the biggest obstacles to staying active in older age. Many people don't even realize how much fear has taken over until their strength improves. Suddenly, they're stepping out of the car more smoothly, turning around without bracing themselves, reaching higher or lower without second-guessing their balance. That confidence creates a positive cycle. The stronger you feel, the more you move. The more you move, the stronger you get. And that cycle contributes directly to longevity because confidence keeps people from limiting their movements unnecessarily. These exercises also support posture in a way walking cannot. With age, the shoulders tend to round, the back leans forward, and the hips tilt. This doesn't happen only from aging, it happens because the supporting muscles weaken and the spine begins compensating. Strengthening the glutes, thighs, and core pulls the body back into alignment. The chest opens, the spine straightens, breathing improves, even digestion benefits from stronger posture. Better posture means better balance, more comfort, and a reduced risk of injury because the body is stacked correctly instead of being pulled forward or twisted out of position. All of this comes from building the muscles that hold the skeleton upright. Perhaps the most impactful benefit of these exercises is how they preserve independence. Independence is the most valuable asset as people age. It's the ability to get out of bed, use the bathroom, take a shower, prepare meals, go for a walk, maintain the home, visit friends, and enjoy daily life without relying on others. Independence depends on strength far more than endurance. You don't need to walk miles to stay independent. You need to be able to stand up, step safely, hold your balance, bend without falling, and lift your own body weight. These exercises directly support those abilities. They keep the body capable of doing the things that matter most. They reduce the risk of falls, which is one of the biggest threats to independence after 65. They strengthen the joints so that mobility stays smooth instead of deteriorating. They keep the muscles active so the body remains capable of handling everyday demands. The long-term outcome of consistent strengthening is resilience. A resilient body can handle unexpected situations. It can recover faster, it can move with stability, respond with speed, and maintain control in ways that prevent accidents. Resilience is one of the biggest predictors of longevity because it keeps people functioning at a high level even as time passes. And resilience comes from strength, not from walking, not from stretching, not from staying busy with light movement. True resilience comes from challenging the muscles just enough to keep them strong, responsive, and coordinated. That's why incorporating these exercises isn't just a fitness decision, it's a life-strengthening decision. It's the choice to build a body that supports you instead of holding you back. As the muscles grow stronger week by week, people begin to feel younger, lighter, safer, and more capable. They realize that age doesn't have to mean decline. It can mean improvement, renewal, and stability when the right muscles are trained consistently. These simple movements unlock a level of strength walking can't touch, and that strength becomes the foundation for better balance, better mobility, better posture, fewer injuries, and a longer, more independent life.